You're watching Derek, the home of financial planning. Now, time for a commercial break.
He's a tough, uncompromising insurance loss adjuster. Hardcastle.
You're watching Derek, the home of financial planning.
Welcome to another Brexit packed edition of Bloke in a Pub, because it actually looks as if it looks at least as if we've had some kind of progress. All the political machinations that have been going through, personal and individual agendas being served left, right and centre, we do in fact now finally have agreement from Parliament on a deal to leave the EU, which has been negotiated by Boris Johnson and his team. The principal difference between this and previous deals being that this doesn't include the Northern Irish backstop, which is a mechanism to ensure that there's no hard border between the north and the south. Instead, the north of Ireland will stay in a customs union, and every 4 years the Assembly there will get to vote on whether they stay in or not. With tedious inevitability, the Democratic Unionist Party, who want Northern Ireland to stay as part of the UK, have said they're not happy with this deal because, while at the moment they have a majority in the Northern Ireland Assembly, if they lost that majority, then the Nationalists, the Republicans, could vote that they leave this arrangement, so they'd lose that power. And the idea originally in the negotiations was that they would have a veto over this, but Boris Johnson has pulled that particular rug from under their feet. So the question I know you're asking is, does this mean we've actually got a deal and we're actually now finally leaving the EU? And I can say to you, no, it doesn't mean that. What it actually means is that it will go backwards and forwards through Parliament with various MPs tabling amendments, so it could end up being totally unrecognisable. It then has to go to the House of Lords, and lots of unelected peers, simply because their family was in the right place at the right time at some point in the past, will then decide whether they want to accept it or not. It's a concession to the royalists after the Civil War, in case you're interested. If it then happens to go past them, it goes back to the House to then be discussed again. Now, this can happen in a matter of days or weeks, but we have actually now reached the point where there isn't enough time to do it before the October 31st deadline. So what happens now? Well, Boris Johnson has written to the EU asking for an extension. It looks as if Boris Johnson is going to try and actually get a general election to try and muster more support to get a majority in the House, so he can just force through his Brexit deal without actually having to kowtow to anyone else, or be hamstrung by a Labour Party that don't really seem to know what they want. So where are we? Well, we've inched forward with our progress, but we're closer to a solution, but we don't have one just yet. But it looks as if a deal and Brexit is finally within sight. What does that mean for investors? Well, we often talk about the fact that when it looks like we've got a deal, sterling goes up, which has happened. And when sterling goes up, the cost of goods internationally becomes more expensive, so multinationals selling overseas make less money, and so the FTSE comes down. And that's exactly what we've been seeing over the last week. And you can expect that to continue over the next few weeks as we edge towards a solution. And the more on that when we know more, and we'll see you next time.
You're watching Derek, the home of financial planning.
Hello, and if you've just tuned in, you're watching Clevercloggs. Our next contestant is Stephen Evans. Stephen, your specialist subject is investment. You have 1 minute of questions on investment, starting now. An asset is something that does what in the longer term?
Grows in value.
Correct. Which asset class produces the highest returns in the longer term and is the only one that consistently outpaces inflation?
Stocks and shares.
Correct. A loan to a company or government with a specific rate of return is called what?
Bond.
Correct. The mix of assets in an investment is called?
Asset allocation.
Correct. Modern portfolio theory details the most effective asset allocations to optimise risk and return. Who won the Nobel Prize for this body of work in 1990?
Henry Markovich.
Correct. Asset allocation drives what percentage of returns from an investment?
Over 90%.
Correct. A collective of investments or funds is called what?
A portfolio.
Correct. A portfolio where asset allocation drives investment returns without active management is called what?
Passive.
I'm sorry, did you say pass?
No, that was passive.
Correct. State the principal advantage of a passive investment.
Cost-efficient access to an asset allocation.
Correct. Eugene Famer won the Nobel Prize in 2013 for work that, in part, explains why a particular active fund manager cannot be relied upon to be consistently top quartile. Name the theory he proposed.
Efficient market hypothesis.
Correct. Behavioural finance is a body of thought originated by Daniel Kahneman dealing with what subject?
Decision-making with respect to investments.
Correct. Which is more important, timing or time in the market?
Time in the market.
Correct. Thank you, Stephen. In that round, you scored 12 correct answers with only one passive.
You're watching Derek, the home of financial planning. You're watching Derek, the home of financial planning.